bless Texas. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for that very kind and warm introduction. Thank you for this wonderful welcome. It is great to be back in San Angelo. Thank you for coming out today. Thank you for standing up for the great state of Texas. You know, we're living in remarkable times. Anything is possible. As proof of that, I'll point to the fact that just a few weeks ago, I was playing one-on-one basketball with Jimmy Kimmel. Now, some of y'all may be wondering, how on earth did that come to pass? So I'll give you a little bit of the backstory. I am a die-hard Houston Rockets fan. And our Rockets came very, very close to winning the Western Conference Finals. They came just one game short. The next day, Jimmy Kimmel goes on national television, begins making fun of us. And he blames the Rocket loss on me. He said, because Ted was at Game 7, he cursed the Rockets. So I got kind of annoyed with that. And I figured, all right, I can either get ticked off or I can have some fun with it. So I pulled out my phone, I sent a tweet. I said, all right, big guy, you talk a good game. Let's settle this man-to-man hoops, one-on-one. The loser gives $5,000 to the charity of the winner's choice. All right. Well, next thing you know, Jimmy says yes. He gets on a plane, he flies to Houston. We played at TSU, Texas Southern University. Over 6,000 people came out to watch the game. As I said that day, never before have so many gathered to watch so little talent in basketball. The entire week before the game, Jimmy went on air every single night talking smack. He guaranteed victory. He said there was no way, it was physically impossible that he would lose. Well, the day of the game came, and I got to tell you, it was ugly. There must have been 1,000 fouls in the course of that game. ESPN that night, they broadcast, if Dr. Naismith had seen what happened here today, he'd have invented a different sport. But at the end of the day, the final score was Cruz 11, Kimmel 9. And even better, we ended up raising over $80,000 for two wonderful Texas charities. So anything can happen. If you look nationally, we've got a Republican president. We have Republican majorities in both houses of Congress, and we are seeing incredible victories for the American people. As we started last year, I think we had 4 big domestic priorities: tax cuts, regulatory reform, Obamacare, and judges. My view was if we could deliver on those 4, it would have a long-lasting and a powerful impact on the state of Texas. And as we stand here a year and a half into it, it is remarkable just how many victories we've had. On tax cuts, in December, we passed the biggest tax cut of a generation. Cutting taxes on small businesses, on farmers, on ranchers, on job creators. Cutting taxes on working families. We doubled the child tax credit from $1,000 per child per year to $2,000 per child per year, which puts real money in the pockets of hardworking Texas families. You take something like the death tax, one of the cruelest and most unfair taxes that hits farmers and ranchers and small business owners and forces, when one generation passes away and passes it on to the next, far too many farms and ranches and businesses are sold to pay the taxes. Well, we doubled the exemption from the death tax, meaning 2/3 of the farms and ranches that would have been subject are now exempt from the death tax. And we doubled the standard deduction, which means starting next year, 90% of Americans will fill out your taxes on a postcard. Now, personally, I think that should be 100%, and we ought to adopt a simple flat tax and abolish the IRS. But 90% is a very good start. On regulatory reform, we've seen tremendous victories as just about every cabinet secretary, just about every cabinet agency has pulled back, has repealed job-killing regulations. Regulations that under President Obama were hammering the state of Texas, were hammering oil and gas, were hammering farmers and ranchers and ag. And the result of tax cuts and pulling back job-killing regulations is that the Texas economy is booming. We're today producing 33% more oil in Texas than we did in 2016. Nationally, unemployment is the lowest it's been in decades. African American unemployment is the lowest we've ever had in recorded history. Hispanic unemployment is the lowest ever recorded since we began keeping the data. Youth unemployment. A number of young people here today. Youth unemployment ages 16 to 24 is the lowest it has been in 52 years. It's real simple. When you cut taxes, when you simplify the tax code, when you pull back job-killing regulations, small business prospers and the state of Texas does great. Third big priority, Obamacare. Clearly the biggest unfinished commitment of our Republican majorities. But even that, it's worth noting, we did manage to come together and repeal the Obamacare individual mandate. That's a big deal. I led the fight to get that done last year. Last fall, nobody thought we could get it done. We had maybe 6 or 7 senators supporting us in the fall. And then by December, we brought everyone together. We got all 52 Republicans on the same page, and we delivered on our promise and repealed the individual mandate. Now we need to finish the job and repeal the rest of that disastrous law. And fourth, judges. Judges have been an unmitigated success of the Trump presidency and of the Republican majority in the Senate. We have Justice Neil Gorsuch, and we're fixing to have Justice Brett Kavanaugh. If you happen to see Chuck Schumer running around on the Senate floor with his hair on fire, that would be why. But not only that, we've confirmed principal constitutionalists up and down the federal judiciary. Last year, the Senate confirmed more federal Court of Appeals judges than any time in history in the first year of a president's term. And for all of us who care about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, who care about free speech and religious liberty, who care about the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, who care about the 10th Amendment and the limitations on the powers of the federal government. It is the courts that are at the crossroads between either undermining those rights or upholding those rights. And with the constitutionalists we have confirmed in the last 2 years, that represents an incredible victory for defending the constitutional rights of 28 million Texans. So we're in an election season now. We're 68 days out from the election. And we got a fight on our hands. The extreme left, they're angry. They're energized. A few minutes ago they were dancing outside the window. And they're unified by their hatred for the president.
Yep.
Now I gotta tell you, that's dangerous.
Yep.
It's resulting in a couple of things. One of the things it's resulting in is tens of millions of dollars flooding into the state of Texas from liberals all over the country. But another thing it's going to result in is in December, we're going to see record-shattering Democratic turnout. Now here's the good news. This is Texas. And in Texas, there are a whole lot more conservatives than there are liberals.
That's right.
That means politically, our task is simple. What we need to do, this election comes down to one word politically: turnout. Turnout, turnout, turnout. If we turn out freedom-loving conservatives, we will have a fantastic election in November. The danger isn't that a bunch of Texas conservatives end up voting Democrat. I don't think that's likely to happen. Our danger is too many of us stay home. Our danger is complacency. That the economy's doing well, people are feeling good, they're focused on their jobs and their family and their kids and the ball game, and they just don't make it to the polls. The other side is going to show up. They're angry, they're ticked. That means for all of us, we got to stand up for what we believe. You know, what is it we believe in as Texans? We believe in low taxes, low regulations, lots and lots of jobs, higher wages, more and more opportunity. We believe in securing the border and keeping our communities safe. We believe in defending the Constitution and defending the Bill of Rights. And if we turn out freedom-loving Texans to stand up and defend our values, we are going to keep the great state of Texas bright, bright red. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you like. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Senator. My name is Grace Shelton, and I'm a junior at Central High School. Like you, I'm a strict constitutionalist and believe in the conservative beliefs of our founding fathers. It seems your adversary has found appeal amongst the younger generations by supporting socialist ideals. Yes. My question to you, Senator, is what are you and the Republican Party doing to close the gap between conservatives and the younger generations?
Yeah.
Hey. Thank you for your question. Thank you for being here, and thank you for speaking out. Let me say your question is incredibly important. If you look at young people, one of the most troubling statistics nationally is about 50% of young people think socialism is a good idea.
Oh, no.
Look, for the rest of us, that is an incredible indictment of everybody else. Because we haven't done our job. Because young people should know, as you know, that socialism has been a manifest failure everywhere on earth that it's been implemented. You want to see socialism? Go take a look at Venezuela. Venezuela used to be a wealthy, prosperous country, one of the richest countries in Latin America. They have abundant oil resources. And then Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro came in and jammed socialism down their throat. And that economy, that country is in free fall. You have people literally eating out of the trash cans. If you care about social justice, if you care about poverty, then you should be passionate about the American free enterprise system, because the American free enterprise system has been the greatest enemy to poverty the world has ever seen. So let's talk about how we reach young people and energize people. I want to start by saying, all right, everyone who is 30 or under, raise your hand. All right, so take a look around. I mean, we've got young people who are here, who are standing up, and who are engaged. You know, according to the mainstream media, Republicans are all old, fat, white, bald guys. And if anyone's offended at that, I didn't mean to be singling it out. But if you look at young people, let me tell you, I think the key to young people is actually your voice, and your voice, and your voice, and your voice. It's speaking out to your friends, it's speaking out to your peers, and I'd say two things. Number one, defend liberty. Liberty is contagious. Liberty is powerful. When your classmates, when you have young people who are saying, look, the lefty argument is real simple. We'll give you free stuff. Now, who doesn't like free stuff? Free stuff, free stuff, free stuff. But, you know, Margaret Thatcher put it wonderfully. She said the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money. And if you look at liberty, a simple question to ask your classmates is, why on earth would you want your life being governed by unelected bureaucrats in Washington? Why would you want, we want you to be free. We want you to be free to make decisions about your life, your future, your dreams, what to do with your money that you make through working, what to do with your kids and how you raise your family, what to do with your future, your health care, who your doctor is. All of this is about who's in charge. The Democrats, they want Washington in charge. They want government in charge. And what we're fighting for is for you to be in charge, and that is a powerful, powerful message. And then I'd say a second point for young people. Have fun. You know, too many Republican politicians act like they got a stick inserted somewhere it don't belong. Like, lighten up, crack a joke, just laugh at yourself. I remember some weeks back, I was on my phone on Twitter driving down the road. I wasn't driving, I was in the passenger seat. And I saw one person who had a Twitter handle, Ted Cruz ate my son. And I was really, really tempted to tweet, he was delicious. Like, just have fun. Don't take yourself so dadgum seriously. And that's a powerful thing. Let me make a final point for young people. We're seeing the left right now. They're filled with rage. They're filled with anger and hatred. You see them cursing and full of fury. Now, that's a sad thing for our country. That's not good for America to have that kind of division, that kind of polarization, that kind of hatred. But it also presents an opportunity for us. We shouldn't respond in kind. Don't respond with that same sort of attitude, but we should be happy warriors. We should reflect joy, because you know what? Our ideas work. You might be pissed off too if you were trying to sell a failed bunch of ideas that doesn't work. Yes, sir.
Senator Cruz, I'm Kevin Frankie, a high school junior here at Central High School. With the recent passing of John McCain, we know that he was kind of an adversary with the Trump administration, but how do you view his passing and more specifically his positions while you were serving with him in the Senate?
Well, John McCain's passing is a sad day. He was an extraordinary man. He was someone who spent virtually his entire life in public service. He was born into a storied Navy family. His father and his grandfather were both admirals. He went and fought in Vietnam, and as you know, he was shot down. And he spent 5.5 years in a POW camp in Hanoi Hilton, being viciously tortured. The most incredible thing I've always found about John McCain is he was offered early release. Because of who his dad was, an admiral, they said, we'll let you go early. And John turned him down. He said, no, I'm not going to leave until my men leave. Now, I got to say, look, I think every one of us, we would hope if we were in that circumstance, we'd say the same thing. That's clearly the right thing to do. But I'd be willing to bet very few of us have ever faced that kind of choice. And to have the character, to have the integrity, to have the courage to say, no, I won't leave, and go back to abusing and torturing me, knowing what you were facing, it is incredible. I was blessed to serve 6 years with him in the Senate. He could be fiery. He could be volcanic. The phrase curses like a sailor applied to John. He could curse you out up and down and three-way sideways. There were a number of issues John and I disagreed on. But I'll tell you, we became friends. And we actually traveled abroad a couple of times together. And one of the things that was truly incredible to see is to see John McCain when he encountered active duty military. And the love that soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines had for him. I mean, they would stop, they'd have tears in their eyes. And the love that he had for them, it was real, it was genuine, it was passionate. And it was incredible. And he was a national hero who fought for our country. And for all of us, our prayers and our thoughts are with Cindy, with his family, with his kids, with his grandkids. And we are grateful for a life of service defending this great nation.
Senator, my name is Eric Austin. I'm a student faculty here at San Angelo State University. So, like most of us here, all of this country, very much. So much so that I signed up for the military.
Yeah.
Just retired. Mr. Angel is also retired, Air Force as well. But my question to you is, I worked hard to get where I was at and to where I'm standing here in front of you. Unfortunately, I'm criticized by some peers and my fellow classmates because I'm Hispanic and I'm Republican. And they automatically assume, well, why? Why are you a Republican? Why aren't you supporting DACA? Why aren't you doing this and that? My parents came to this country, they did it the right way.
Yeah.
I had the best future that I could possibly get, and I paid them by serving this country. They still hard working. So my question to you is, Senator, with this DACA thing, I'm not sure it's still up in the air kind of thing. I want to know is what's your approach and stance on it, as being a Latino Republican.
So it's a great question. I'll get directly to it, but let me first of all say thank you for your service. And let me ask every veteran who is here, please raise your hand so that all of us can thank all of you. We are grateful and we love you. Now thank you for your question. You're right so you're in school, you're Hispanic, and you're conservative. Now, according to the media, you're not supposed to exist. So by the way, everyone can say you saw a ghost. And let me tell you something. You're also not alone. One of the things the national media does not understand about the Hispanic community is that our community is a conservative community. The values that resonate in the Hispanic community: faith, family, patriotism. A lot of people don't know Hispanics have the highest rate of military enlistment of any demographic in this country. And hard work. Let me ask you something. When is the last time you saw an Hispanic panhandler? I don't think I ever have. In the Hispanic community, it would be shameful to be out there begging on the streets. Now, if you want work done, you'll see men and women lining up to work their fingers to the bone to provide for their kids. Now, every one of those values are conservative values. Now, what the mainstream media says is that the way you get Hispanic votes in Texas is you gallop to the left. You embrace amnesty, you embrace open borders, you embrace socialism. And that's just not true. That's what Beto O'Rourke is doing. He's following the media play to run crazy to the left. But I'll point out to you as a point of encouragement, in 2012, when I first ran for the Senate. Well, thank you, sir. So in that election, I got 40% of the Hispanic vote in the state of Texas, at the same time that Mitt Romney was getting 27% of the Hispanic vote nationwide. And then, as now, and every day in between, I ran and am categorically opposed to amnesty, in favor of building a wall, and support securing the border. And what a lot of the national media doesn't understand is the Hispanic community is very directly impacted by illegal immigration. This is not theoretical and abstract. If you have sanctuary cities that are letting violent, criminal, illegal aliens go, where do you think they go move into? What neighborhoods do you think they're moving into? They're moving into predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods. They're moving right down the street from Hispanics who are American citizens who are dealing suddenly with MS-13 and violent criminals coming in. You want to talk about who's paying the price for illegal immigration? The Hispanic community pays it in a very real way. They're also dealing with, you know who gets left out of this debate all the time, are legal immigrants. People like your parents, people like my dad, who followed the rules, who waited in line, who came here seeking the American dream. And it is often the legal immigrants who face the very direct job competitions. They're the ones who are sometimes losing their job to illegal immigration, who's undercutting them on wages and driving their wages down. So my view in terms of how we address immigration, I've summed up my views on immigration many times in 4 words. Legal, good, illegal, bad. Which I think the vast majority of Texans agree with.
Yes.
That when it comes to illegal immigration, we need to do everything necessary to secure the border. That means build the wall. But that's not it. That also means we need to use technology. We need to use infrared. We need to use fixed wing and rotary wing aircraft. And we need boots on the ground. We need to triple the U.S. Border Patrol. And we can do all of that while we continue to welcome, to celebrate legal immigrants, those who come here and stand in line and follow the rules and come here. Ronald Reagan referred to legal immigrants as Americans by choice. I think that's the balance that Texans believe in. I think that's the right approach. And so the case we can make, you look at where the Democratic Party has gone on immigration. They are so extreme, they're so radical, that I don't think it reflects the Hispanic community in Texas. I don't think it reflects voters in Texas. I'll give you a common sense example. And when people are pushing back on you, take something like Kate's Law. So I am the author of Kate's Law in the Senate. Kate's Law. Kate's Law, as you know, was named for Kate Steinle, beautiful young woman, 28 years old in California. She was on a pier with her dad, and she was shot and killed by a repeat felon illegal alien who had been in and out of jail over and over again, had multiple felony convictions, had been deported over and over again, but the revolving door, they kept letting him out and letting him out and letting him out. And he was in a sanctuary city, and they let him out. Kate's Law provides that for any aggravated felon who repeatedly enters the country illegally, they face a mandatory minimum prison sentence. If Kate's law had been on the books, Kate Steinle would still be alive because her murderer would have been in a federal prison instead of on that pier that night taking her life. Now that is common sense legislation that 70, 80, 90% of Texans agree with. Republicans agree with that, independents agree with that, libertarians agree with that, even Texas Democrats agree with that. So why hasn't it passed? Because the Washington Democrats, the elected Democrats, have gotten so extreme they're filibustering it and blocking it. That is an agenda that's out of step with the people of Texas. And so I think we need to embrace common sense positions, secure the border, protect our community, and welcome and streamline and improve legal immigration. And I think that's a balance that is very appealing. Yes, sir.
Mr. Cruz, I'm a student at Central High School, graduating senior.
By the way, the meeting of the yearbook club will be shortly after.
As a student, one of our main concerns is, of course, the growth of mass shootings and school safety.
Yes.
And a lot of people on the far left believe that repealing is the only answer to solution.
Yep.
Well, we know as Republicans that that's never the solution, and that more security and more rights to our citizens is always the best way. How can the Republicans, especially in the Senate and Congress today, fight against the growth of these angry liberals against our gun rights?
Look, it's a great question. It's an important question. And it's also a question on people's minds. I mean, we have schools starting last week. We have students, all the students that are starting school, all the parents and grandparents who have kids and grandkids. I'm going to get to the specifics of your question, but let me give some general observations first. Let me first of all say there's something deeply messed up going on. That the shootings we're having in schools, look, when you and I were kids, this wasn't a thing. This didn't happen. I mean, maybe you had to worry about a guy giving you a black eye or a bloody nose. But you didn't worry about some lunatic coming in trying to kill everybody. I mean, it wasn't happening. And there are a lot of reasons that are driving this that are completely separate from any law in Washington. There are reasons like removing God from the public square. Like a loss of our shared moral foundations, a weakening of the ties of community and the church and the family. And so you have young people who are alone and alienated and angry. And a lot of those problems, they're deep, deep societal problems we're struggling with that we need to address. And there's going to be no piece of legislation that's going to magically fix them. But it's a responsibility for us as citizens, as fathers, as mothers, it's a responsibility for the church to try to rebuild and restore that foundation and that fabric of who we are. All of that being said, there's a lot we can do to make schools safer. Santa Fe High School. Santa Fe High School is about a half hour from my house. I was at home that Friday morning when the school shooting happened, about 7:30 in the morning. So I just got in the truck and headed down there. And I spent the entire day at the school. I spent the entire day with the students, with the parents, with the teachers, with the first responders. I went to the hospital that afternoon. Young man who'd been shot in the hip and through the elbow. He'd just come out of surgery. There were probably a dozen other students in his hospital room there. He had family there. And I was there with the governor. And look, when you're with people after a tragedy, you don't come in and give a political speech. That's not the right approach. You just go and listen. You just go love on them, and you listen to whatever they want to say. And so we're there, and the governor and I both asked all the students, we said, what's the answer to this? What do we do about this? Every single student in that hospital room said, gun control's not the answer. What they said is, you know what, if you take away our guns, we're not going to be any safer. It just means the murderers and killers are the only ones with guns.
Yeah.
And so we said, all right, what is the answer? The number one answer the student gave is the biggest thing that we need to do is have more armed police officers on our school campuses to keep students safe. The number one thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. You know, one of those Santa Fe students who was standing in that room, he was in the classroom adjoining where the shooting happened. The shooting happened back in the art annex. He was in the classroom next door. He said, you know what? My teacher is a former Marine. If he'd have been armed, he could have stopped that before a single person was killed. I think an absolutely common sense step is to allow teachers who are trained, who are capable, who know how to handle a firearm, to keep and bear arms and help keep schools safe. Now, this is an issue the media loves to caricature. They love to ridicule. And they paint an image of little old Mrs. Smith, at age 80, the librarian with a walker. And they paint an image of putting a .44 Magnum in her hand. Now, by the way, I used that analogy in East Texas, and out in the back of the room was a Mrs. Smith in a walker who said, I'll take it and I'll hit what I aim at. So this is Texas. But nobody's talking about forcing a teacher who doesn't feel comfortable to carry a firearm. There are an awful lot of teachers who are former military, who are former law enforcement, who are trained, who are perfectly capable to handle a firearm. And that's one of the ways to help make schools safer. Beyond that, we can do a lot on physical infrastructure. For example, shrinking the number of entrances to a school. You know, if you think about it, you go to a bank, you go to a courthouse, you go to a lot of businesses. They typically have one or maybe two entrances. They don't have 10 or 20 or 30 or 40. You know, you look at the Santa Fe shooter, he went in through a back entrance of the art annex. If you have one or two entrances, you bring any potential assailant through that entrance where law enforcement is right there and can stop them before they get to the kids. There's more we can do in terms of schools where it's appropriate, and on the local level making that decision to put metal detectors in. That's another step that can be done. And another thing is hardening the doors so that they're bulletproof. In both Santa Fe and Parkland, you had students that were holding the doors shut, trying to stop the shooter from getting in. And in both instances, the shooter stepped back and fired through the door, and they were flimsy little doors, and killed a student inside the classroom. We need to have doors in the classroom that you can close, that you can lock, that you can't shoot bullets through, so that you have a safe haven for the students if, God forbid, there is a shooting. The point is, there's a lot you can do. But the answer the Democrats and the media always want is go after the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. That's wrong, and it doesn't work. Instead, target the bad guys and come down on the bad guys like a ton of bricks. All right, let's do 3 more questions. Yeah.